Psychological Skills Training. Self-Talk by Coach Shannon. What is self-talk? Self-talk could also be termed as self-instruction and self-coaching. And if you look at the image on that page and you see how all of those thoughts and ideas funnel down into that arrow which says you control. Now, if you use self-talk in the vein or the way that I'm suggesting, self-talk equals self-instruction and equals self-coaching, it may make sense to you that most of the things that you're saying to yourself need to be directed, and they need to be motivating, and they need to be purposeful thoughts. Now, if we are able to understand self-talk in that way, and we understand that we control how we coach ourselves and how we instruct ourselves, this is the essence of this slideshow. Common self-talk errors focus on just about all of the ideas in those boxes on that pages. And what I want to point out first is that things that are out of our control are things that we cannot control. Okay, that's really very simple, right? But if we focus on things that are out of control, sometimes what actually happens is we become frustrated, angry, and or very anxious. So when we learn that things are out of our control, we do not need to even think about them, let alone talk about them. So most of the other ideas on this page are going to have that underlying thing. Things that happen in the past and or the future, they are completely out of our control. And examples of what we might be saying to ourselves are, okay, we'll start off with the past. The last time I wrestled this guy, he did this to me and she did that to me, and now I don't know what I'm going to do, and I don't know what I'm going to have, how I'm going to prepare myself to do X, Y, and Z. Or focusing on the future. Again, that's out of your control. It's done. There's nothing you can do about it but learn and move on. Or focusing on the future. After I wrestle this person, wrestle that person, I'm going to be in the quarters, then I'm going to be in the semis, and then I'm going to be in the championships, and in the final match, I'm going to wrestle that person. In the first round or the preliminary rounds, it's essential to focus on that particular opponent at that particular time and do these particular processes so that you can perform at a high level. Moving yourself from round to round to round, again, completely out of your control, and we need to direct our self-talk to where we are at that particular moment. Focusing on your weaknesses during competition. It's important to focus on your strengths and your weaknesses primarily in training. Focusing on your weaknesses during competition is out of the way. It is going to distract you. When you focus on your weaknesses, primarily that should be done in practice. When you're competing, it should only be focusing on your strengths. And an example of focusing on your strengths in competition would be, this is how I prepared myself over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm going to do a great job of doing X, Y, and Z because I prepared myself very well. The last 3 weeks of training have gone well, and now I know that I've worked on these specific skills, and these are excellent skills for me to attack and do in competition. That sort of language gets your minds focused on what you can do at a high level, and it keeps you in the here and now versus focusing on things that you do not well. Those, again, should be dealt with in practice on an ongoing daily basis, and that's the reason why we actually do practice, to correct our weaknesses. Focusing only on outcome or perfection. Outcome essentially is what you actually get as the result when the competition is over or after the match is over, and perfection is, something like this. I've got to win every single match by 15 points. Now, theoretically, that could happen, but if you focus only on the outcome and or perfection, it sets you up for something that's, again, something that you cannot really necessarily control. What you can control is your performance and your process. So when you focus on the outcome, which is out of your control because there's a referee, there's an opponent, and then there's other things that are out of your control, and focusing on perfection, again, because you have an opponent in front of you and a referee, it is not necessarily ideal for you to focus on those things. What is important for you to focus on, though, is your process and your performance, which is going to lead you to the outcome. And that, again, goes back to one of the slideshows we did earlier on goals. And I recommend you watch that again just so that you understand the difference between those different types of goals and how you should be focusing on, what you should be saying to yourself. Kind of have suggested that uncontrollable factors are a large part of self-talk errors that some people may focus on. Here are some other ideas. You cannot control who the referee is. You cannot control the temperature of the gym. You cannot control who you're actually going to wrestle. You cannot control a lot of things that are going to actually happen in that tournament. And if you control or focus on things that you can't control, like, man, I hope I wrestle so-and-so next. Now you're actually, planting the seed in your mind. If you don't wrestle that person now, maybe that causes some anxiety or this. Or I hope that person wins because the last time I did that, again, you can't control that. I hope I get that referee because he's my friend and he helps me. Having those kind of thoughts go through your head may discourage you if they don't happen the way you want to do. So now, can you see how that can actually erode your confidence a little bit and kind of put you in a place where you're going to be distracted when you're competing? So that's something that you need to think about and let it sink in, so that now when you're talking to yourself, which is really instructing yourself, which is really coaching yourself, you now are better able to say things to yourself that are going to keep you on track to perform at a high level. Dichotomous thinking, or focusing on dichotomous thinking, suggests that if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. Or if I don't win every single match by 15 points, I'm a loser. If I don't win this tournament, I'm a failure. Again, there's a couple different things going on there. You're focusing on perfection and or the outcome, and or you're telling yourself if you don't do this, then that. What you should be constantly doing is motivating yourself and encouraging yourself. A lot of the times it's never really either or. It's always lies somewhere kind of in between that, and we've got to get our minds to buy into the concept of telling ourselves that we need to focus on the process and the performance, and then actually doing it again and again and again. When I get to this, as an example, when I get to this competition, I'm going to do a really good warm-up. After the warm-up, I'm going to get my mind right, and I'm going to prepare myself to perform at a high level. Saying those kind of things and focusing on the process and the performance is a better way to get your mind focused on the task at hand. Important issues for or of self-instruction. Again, self-instruction to me means self-talk, which also means self-coaching. What you say to yourself matters, and really that's the essence of this whole slideshow here. Once we understand what we say to ourselves actually does matter, because our thoughts a lot of times actually do become actions, now it's very clear that we're going to choose our words carefully and say the right things to ourselves to get us ready. I've kind of put those two, there's 4 other ideas there, and I've kind of paired them together, and I'm going to explain that now. The mind does not register the word don't. Self-instruction should be stated positively. There's 2 different ideas there, but they're kind of put together so I can explain to you how they both could work. Here is an example of the prior. I do not want to have a bad stance. I don't want to get snapped down. I don't want to get a double leg shot on me. You can rephrase all of those and they can be stated positively like this. I want to have a really good stance by keeping my elbows in, and when I have my elbows in, I'm going to be ready to attack. Or when this guy does whatever to me, I'm going to immediately react with this type of skill or that type of skill. Or every time I step on the mat, it doesn't matter what this person throws at me because I've trained myself well enough to compete at a high level. All of those things are kind of stated positively, and they're not saying what you do not want to do, they're saying what you want to do. Sports scientists have no idea why the word don't is deleted from our mind when we say something. So when we say, I don't want something to happen, your mind really rephrases and reflects on what you've just said minus the don't. So anytime you say, I don't want to do something, your mind just hears what you want to do. I don't want to get snapped down, and then I want to get snapped down. Can you see how that works? Scientists have no idea why that is, but it happens again and again and again. That's why everything that we need to say needs to be stated positively, and you want to focus on what you want to happen versus what you do not want to happen. The last 2, filter all feedback into positive self-talk and search for inspiring self-talk and use it. I've paired those 2 together because sometimes, depending on your coach's personality or your personality or your friend's personalities or whatever anyone says to you, the feedback that you're getting, although it's meant to be helpful and positive, it may not come out that way. And if it does not come out that way, you quickly have to turn it into meaningful information that's going to help you get what you need. You quickly have to filter everything that's said to you so that it can be positive, so that you can use it for self-instruction, self-coaching, so that you can get what you need. Otherwise, if you're unable to use that skill in that way, people can say things to you all the time, and then it may erode your confidence. It may make you feel bad. It may make you have different types of reactions. What I'm suggesting is anytime anyone says anything to you, it needs to be, you need to filter it into positive self-instruction, positive self-talk, and positive self-coaching. And on the flip side, when you hear inspiring, encouraging, motivating self-talk from someone else, again, anytime anyone says anything, it's self-talk, either inward or outward. They can either say it to you or they can say it in their head. But when you hear this type of language, if it fits with your personality and it fits with the way that you like to hear things, you need to store that into your self-talk toolbox, so to speak. So when you have moments of discourage or adversity or things aren't going the way you planned, you can pull that out of your toolbox and you can use it. The idea behind using self-instruction, self-coaching, and self-talk is anytime something is, you need to use something, maybe you're discouraged or maybe you're just not feeling good, you can coach yourself. Again, if you go back to that first original slide, you control everything that's going into your brain in terms of how it says and what it means. Once we understand we control what things mean, we can quickly turn any kind of negative or critical feedback into positive self-talk. Or we can use what someone else is saying and maybe change it just a little bit so it fits our personality, and we can use that again and again. And the goal, again, of course, is to use everything for high performance. Create a range of self-talk for a range of needs. Again, I want you to sort of use self-talk with this language. Self-talk equals self-instruction equals self-coaching. And when we do that, now we can use self-talk to trigger all of the other psychological skills that we've gone through. This psychological skill is the last one, and then in the I guess sort of slideshows that we're doing, there's a summary which is performance planning, which kind of uses all of them. But this particular skill can be used for just about everything on that page. It can be used to set goals. It can be used to trigger your imagery. It can be used for any kind of psychological skill that you can think of. Once we understand that, now we can use it again and again and again to get our psychological motivation level up, or to pull our psychological motivation level down, or to motivate or encourage, or to turn negative words into positive words. Self-talk is one of the most important psychological skills. All of the psychological skills that we've gone through in these modules are important, but once we understand that we can control them with self-talk and we can direct and guide them with self-talk, now they become increasingly more usable, because what we say to ourselves becomes increasingly important. And understanding that, now you can use this particular psychological skill to guide and direct all of your other psychological skills. Psychological skills training, self-talk, acknowledgments. All of the information presented in this slideshow was derived from the United States Ski and Snowboard Association Elite Performance Series, Sports Psychology, and in 2004. Now, the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Association is a national governing body, which means that particular group is charged with getting athletes ready for the Pan American Games and or the Olympic Games in the USA. I worked for USA Wrestling for 8 years, and their charge was the same thing. Get people ready for, wrestlers ready for the Pan American Games and the Olympic Games. And the reason why I point that out is because as I was an employee of USA Wrestling, I worked at the United States Olympic Education Center, and I was in contact with a bunch of different national governing bodies. Because I was able to kind of talk to these people and go right into their offices every single day, things that I wasn't actually great at, I actually sought from other national governing bodies so I could get better. In essence, I was consistently working on my strengths and weaknesses when I was a coach at the United States Olympic Education Center. Also, when I traveled around the world, now I was dealing with national governing bodies in different countries. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because once you understand what your strengths are, you always want to enhance them and or maintain them. And once you understand what your weaknesses are in training, you want to consistently be trying to get them to be strengths. That's what makes you a great athlete and or a great coach. Focusing on your weaknesses during training is going to enhance your ability to perform at a high level during the competition. Again, if you go back in this slideshow, it suggests that you want to focus on your weaknesses only in training. And I'm suggesting that when you do that in training again and again and again, and you understand that you control your self-talk, and self-talk can be used to direct and guide all of your other psychological skills, you will become much better at controlling your ability to perform at a high level.